Our economy has been battered by a pandemic, a breakdown in the supply chain, and a war. So is that why we're seeing sky-high inflation? Or is a little greed sprinkled on top? Sounds like a question for our David Pogue.
How much for a single scoop of the cherry?
Right now it's at $5. It used to be $4.50.
That's outrageous!
I know.
At Sugar Hill Creamery in Harlem, the handmade ice cream will cost you more these days because, according to owner Petrushka Bazin-Larson, everything costs her more.
Like everything is going up, from dairy, so milk and cream, to like just our cups. Costs me more to get the cups here than it is for the cups. Do you know what I'm saying? The freight charges are gastronomical.
No matter what business you're in, costs are way up for all kinds of reasons. For Dariush Petruski's vodka company,
the glass itself, depending on the size of the bottle, is up 17% up to 25% for the larger size bottles.
Caroline Morris's gift shop,
my vendors, where they might have paid $3,000 for a container for shipping, are now paying $30,000.
Al Underwood's reading glasses supply.
A couple years ago, there were these tariffs we got hit with. That was 10%.
So what's going on? As you may recall, prices are a function of supply and demand. More demand, higher prices.
We put much too much demand into the economy last year, and inevitably that was going to cause it to overheat, which it has.
Harvard professor Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary in the Clinton administration. He predicted this year's inflation over a year ago.
Within the year, we're going to be dealing with the most serious incipient inflation problem that we have faced in the last 40 years.
The combination of pumping trillions and trillions and trillions of stimulus money and the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates at zero, all of that taken together was, I think, inevitably going to drive the car much too fast and cause it to go off the road.
Then, in an unhappy coincidence, the supply went down too.
The big increases in prices have much more to do with shortages.
Supply and demand both way out of whack. But lately, we've been hearing about a third contributing factor.
The last thing we should be thinking about is rewarding companies for exploiting the situation.
Then there's a third set of arguments people make that some firms are able to somewhat opportunistically raise prices in the midst of all this chaos, given those other two factors.
Greedflation.
Greedflation.
Mike Konczal is an economist at the Roosevelt Institute. In a new study, he graphed corporate profit margins over time.
Their big profit margin has gone from about 5% over the last several decades to almost 10% in the past 2 years. So there's been a giant jump in corporate profits over essentially during the pandemic and during the recovery.
We have been so far unable to get any of these companies with record profits to speak to us for this story.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Robert Reich is a professor at Berkeley and was Labor Secretary in the Clinton administration. What would they say their rationale is for raising prices unduly at a time when we can least afford it?
Well, they would say our obligation is to our shareholders. And that's it.
So everyone agrees corporations have raised prices as high as they can get away with. But not everyone agrees that there's anything wrong with that.
I wouldn't call it greedflation, quite honestly. I mean, companies are responding to what the incentives are in the market, and they have to maximize their shareholder returns. That's it.
Wow. I thought that you really felt like these corporation leaders are being exploitative and unfair.
I don't use the term unfair. It's not a matter of morality. Corporations are not people. They are going to maximize their share prices. That's what they do. But the result has been extraordinary price inflation.
Or, as Larry Summers puts it,
resorts in Miami charge more in the winter than they do in the summer and have larger markups. That doesn't mean they're gouging. It means that sometimes there's more demand relative to supply. So I think this idea that prices being raised in the face of strong demand constitutes gouging is a real misconception.
You make it sound like capitalism is working like it's supposed to. Supply and demand determine prices.
Yeah, look, we have a market economy and we haven't found alternatives to a market economy that are better.
But that doesn't mean we're helpless. See, in a perfect market economy, if you charge too much, competitors will rush in and steal your customers. But our market isn't perfect.
Since the 1980s, 2/3 of American industries have become more concentrated. We have more and more monopolization, more and more market power, more and more power by big companies to set prices.
But I thought there's antitrust laws. I thought the government's supposed to protect us from that.
Well, you would think so. But since the 1980s, antitrust law has become very unfashionable.
So how do we rein in this wild inflation?
Government can and should do much more. The threat of antitrust enforcement, combined with a windfall profits tax, right there you have almost enough.
I think the executive branch and the Congress can make a contribution by reducing tariffs, by figuring out how to buy things more inexpensively, by increasing the supply of commodities that are in short supply.
There is some good news. Gas prices have recently started to drop a little bit, and so have shipping prices. Meanwhile, analyst Mike Konczal has good news about the economy as a whole. You know, if you can look past that inflation thing.
The economy is still very strong. Spending is still very strong. Job growth is still increasingly high. You know, with unemployment at 3.5%, this is probably the best labor market we've had in 60 or 70 years.
Are you getting anything?
Now we just have to fix the inflation.
Do you want to pay cash or card?
For ice cream entrepreneur Petrushka Bazin-Larsen, that day won't come soon enough.
You know, it's a little harder to do business, right? Because we are hopeful that it's possible and that at the end of this, whatever that is, we'll be stronger because of it.